Welcome to Momentor and our Humankind interviews.
We're going to bring light to impactful stories about life, parenting, big shifts, little signs, laughter, joy, play, going outside, because I love to go outside. So each guest, we're going to explore 3 questions, maybe 4 if they're up for a 4th, and just make it short, sweet, fun, and insightful. I hope you'll join us. Thank you.
2 Heathers.
The 2 Heathers.
That's right.
It's Heather's time.
That's right.
So thank you so much for coming today. And
Excited to be here.
Hey! So today we have Heather Caudill visiting, and we are going to talk a little bit about epiphanies from her life and her journey, and what prompted those epiphanies, what experiences in her journey. So with each guest, we're going to explore 3 questions, and those are specifically a story about their impactful journey, something that has happened in your life, and any epiphanies that have occurred or come out of that experience. And then I'm really curious how you connect with the people in your life, and whether it be friends, coworkers, family.
I love that.
Those are my questions. Heather is a connected, growth-oriented executive leader and coach, and she is also a consultant.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, I love coming. I grew up in a software company, so from 10 people all the way to 1,700 people, part of a public company. And through that growth journey, I just got to learn so much in a lot of different areas, but my focus really is on the customer journey and the experience that customers have, and then also the connective tissue between customer happiness and employee happiness. Mm-hmm. So I recently took a step away from corporate and really started leaning into helping other startups and high growth companies on figuring out that journey from after the sale. What is the customer experience like, and what are the people like that support that journey within your company? And that's, I'm most passionate about the people side. So really focusing in on the opportunities for employees, their growth and development, and figuring out how to make them happy so that that automatically connects to your customers. So
Absolutely.
That's what I love. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful, and well said too.
Thanks.
I love that. You describe what you do. It's very inspiring, and
Yes.
I know you're a mom.
Yes.
Also, tell me a little more about your children.
I have 3 amazing children. 2 boys, 17, 23, and my daughter's 29. And they're all, I have a senior about to start school, one just finished college, and then my daughter's been out for a while. So they're amazing.
Wonderful.
So fun.
Very cool. And so that's like a lot of years of parenting that
Yes.
you have, I'm sure, many stories in that realm.
Yes. And my daughter is my bonus child. So I also have the dynamics of an ex-wife and being a stepmother. But because I've been with her since she was 2 and now she's 29, it's so hard to believe. I'm sure she might have some other words to share, but she was like my practice kid before I had 2 boys. But I get the benefit of a daughter with her. So lots of parenting journeys along the way. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, what will you share with us today? What's an impactful moment in your journey so far that you want to share with us that has really affected you and
So there's been so many that I could talk about, but I think I'll just go to one that's happened most recently. So as a continuous learner, I like pushing myself outside of my comfort zone all the time, just doing different things that challenge me. So recently I signed up for a storytelling class, and I think I had one purpose going in, which was I'm also a speaker. I love speaking, and so I thought, well, this will be something to enhance my journey as a speaker, and that was really why I signed up. And it's a 6-week class, once a week, and really intending to learn about the mechanics of storytelling. And so I went in with a very specific thing that I thought I was going to talk about. And that was to talk about my career journey because it's been a bit unique. I graduated college as a dance major. I've taught in dance studios. I danced for an NBA team. Like, I just thought this is what I'm going to do. And then realized pretty quickly that most of the jobs were in the school system. I didn't want to do that. So then I was a flight attendant, and then I did other customer service jobs, and then landed at a software company after being more intentional and seeking out technology. So it's pretty unique path that then led me to become an executive at a software company. So I thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to tell this story. And that's what I thought I was going to workshop. And we got in there, and probably after the second week, she said, okay, I know you all have ideas about what you want to talk about. Think about a second idea that you want to talk about. So I'm like, oh, like, I already know
Double
what my
challenge.
idea is. Like, I'm just going to stick with it. So I started thinking about my dad. And my dad passed away when I was 14, and he died by suicide. And I started thinking about the story of how I found out. And so I thought, okay, let me write down this other idea, and we had to do it for homework. So I went home, I wrote down, you had to like basically write an outline. We weren't ready to flesh out the full story. So write an outline. And so I thought, all right, at least I've done my homework, but I'm talking about my career. And then I get into class the next week, and she said, okay, I want each of you to go around the room and share your second story idea, not the first, which we were all prepared to go through the outline. So
she's like pushing you a little.
Yeah, so she really pushed us, and I told basically the outline of my second story. And when I started telling the story, I started crying. And my dad's been dead. I'm 52. He died when right before my 15th birthday. So it's been a lot of years. And I've done a lot of therapy and a lot of healing. Now, I absolutely can cry sometimes when I think about my dad, but I didn't feel like it was at the surface so much. So I'm telling them, I start crying, and I'm like, that's it. I cannot tell this story on stage because the culmination of the class was a showcase. So I was like, that's it. I can't, like, this is the story I'm telling. I was just really hard on myself. And I think slightly embarrassed that like I was so caught off guard. I mean, I didn't know these people. Like, there's 8 other people, 10 counting the teachers, that I didn't know that well at that point in the class. And so I went home and I thought about it, and I kept thinking about, like, maybe I'm meant to tell this story, which is why it's like just touched me so much in that moment. And maybe I need this cathartic experience to help work through some of this some more, even though I've been through a lot of therapy over the years, and I felt like I'd really dealt with my dad's death. So I chose that story, and then over the next
vulnerability,
probably 4
right?
weeks, yes,
Very much.
over the 4 weeks crafting this story. And there is an element of entertainment. It's a storytelling class, and we do a showcase, but there were no changes to the truth or the story. It was just like how to think about the moments that matter, the pauses in the story. But I tell the story of getting off the school bus, and I had worn my mother's denim jacket back in the 80s. It was like one that had puff sleeves and snaps and
shoulder
it was
pads.
Yes. Such a cool jacket. I wasn't allowed to wear it. I snuck it out that day. She went to work early. I snuck it and wore it to school, and then came off the bus in this jacket I'm not supposed to wear. And I knew I was going to get it back in her closet, but she was waiting for me in the parking lot with her boyfriend at the like when I got off the bus. So I tell the story of getting off the bus, thinking I'm in trouble about my jacket, and then it's the moment that my mother tells me that about my dad's death. And then it goes on to talk about my childhood and all of those things. And so it was such a unique experience, because after going through this time, I actually don't think I learned a ton about how to improve my speaking. I think at the end of the day, it really was about the universe guiding me, or whatever higher belief, a higher being. It was about me working through this story about my dad, and it took me back to places that I hadn't thought about in 30 years, 35 years. So it was such a great experience. It was really hard, and I went very deep in the story, and it had to be 8 minutes. So I had to stand on stage, and it was a full house, and tell this story about finding out about my dad's death. And it really was a story of transformation, of how I was very angry with him for a lot of years for leaving me. And that through therapy and time, I was able to find the joy again in, like, my dad really was a great human being that just suffered from PTSD, from Vietnam, from all these things. And so it really was meant to be a transformation story of how I went from being so angry and thinking really it was all about me, to, like, my dad was a human that was suffering. And I was able to find the joy again in remembering my dad and what he meant to me, and that, like, my eyes are his eyes. He had long eyelashes. My boys have long eyelashes. When I see that, it makes me happy, because I know that's something he gave to us. So it was just such an impactful experience, where I thought going in it was one thing, and then it turned out to be this amazing therapeutic, cathartic experience that I was able to share with others. And my family was in the audience, and my boys, I know, have never heard that story. They knew about my dad. The other really cool thing that I experienced from it was my older son has, I felt like, seen me. I don't know who else can relate to this, but when you're a parent, that you're the mom or whatever, and that's how they see you.
Yep.
And I think my 23-year-old has gotten to see me as Heather, as a person, and as a human. And he has seen me in really big moments on stage as an executive, so I know at his age he's seen me. My 17-year-old, I think it was the first time he really saw me, because afterwards they had driven separate. I came home and my husband said, "Wow, Cole really loved it. He really was surprised at how just the storytelling class," because there were 7 other stories that were told. And I went upstairs and I just sat down in his room and I asked him what he thought, and he was going on about the other stories and about my stories, and he's like, "Mom, you are a really good public speaker."
Aww.
And it was that moment where he saw, like, I felt so seen by him as me.
So my third question is about connecting.
Yeah,
I loved how you described being seen by him.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and I'll talk about both boys, because I don't know if you experienced this, but car time is great.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so car time with just one of my kids at a time. There's fun conversations that happen if I get both boys in the car at the same time, but specifically one-on-one time in the car, it's like if I'm just quiet. And I find that's a way that I build connection also, is through listening. I think there's a lot that I do from a try to lead by example, or I lean into transparency and vulnerability. That's who I am, but I also respect that's not who everyone is. So I think in some ways it's through being completely transparent with my kids, and also with my teams, when, like, in a work setting. And recognizing everybody's not the same way, but that's how I show up. And sometimes I think that creates connection, where I've had people come back to me and say, the way you own, like, I've made so many mistakes as a leader, and I think one of the things that's really important is taking accountability and showing up and just owning it. So I've had so many people come back to me and say, that was such an impactful moment, and yeah, I know it sucked, but thank you for, like, just owning it. And I think it's very similar for me with my kids, in that I like to create the space. Usually with them, it starts with silence, with me just being quiet, and they start talking, and then building that rapport and connection. And I just had that experience with my 17-year-old in the car on Sunday, where I asked him, he was telling me about something I don't even remember, and I just asked him if he was happy. And he repeated the question back. He was like, "Wow, okay, am I happy?" And he said, yeah, I think like for the most part, I'm really happy. There's a couple of things that are just really sticking on my mind. And I said, okay, like, tell me what's going on. And one is his permit, because he still doesn't have it. He doesn't care about driving. And so now I think his friends, he's starting to feel a little bit of that, like, oh, I should have my permit so I can be driving so that I can get my license all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been carrying that, which is interesting. And then college, which would make sense to me. Is like, I don't know what I'm going to do and like all of that, but like figuring out what he's going to do for college. And so I thought it was really, it was just a cool moment where I just created space, and then I asked him a few follow-ups, and then it all comes pouring out. And then it led into a whole, I shared with him, like when there's stuff weighing on me, this is what I do. And sometimes this helps. So what is like one thing we can do to chip away at some of that? So it was just a great exchange. And for my older son, it's the same. We like to go to the gym early in the morning. It's just me and him in the car. And that's when I'm just quiet, and he's much more of a talker than my 17-year-old. So it's, I mean, I can really just be quiet, and he will talk for 20 minutes the whole way to the gym.
Isn't that amazing when they're not looking at you, right, in the car? Yes. And I've had so many parents tell me this. Is there anything in your life right now that you just absolutely love, a lesson that's happening for you right now? It can be, a person, it can be a place, it can be a TV show, it can be a thing, like a favorite thing. Share anything that comes up.
Wow. Okay, so I did just have a really interesting experience. I'm fascinated. I will be exploring this more. But I had a session with someone that focuses on human design. And so I'm familiar with human-centered design in product spaces. But this was very different and talked about chakras, and it reminded me a little bit of Enneagram with numbers and that sort of thing. But I was not familiar with this concept at all.
Okay.
So I had been at lunch with a few women and met this woman for the first time. Her name's Rachel. She's amazing. And she was just so jazzed about what she did and how it had helped her. And then it led her down this path as a coach, talking about and like just dug deep into human design. And so I just knew in the moment, I've been in so much transition after being in corporate for my entire career to transitioning to entrepreneurship. And so I spent time with her in person, and it just blew my mind, the insights that I knew about chakras and that. So some of the energy around that and learning more about how my chakras were and are, and energy and the quirks about your personality that are explained because of how you were designed to be on this earth and your purpose. And so very much in the headspace that I am right now of really trying to fully live my purpose. So anyway, human design, it was fascinating. And
we need to meet Rachel.
Yeah.
Join us again, will you? In the meantime, follow our socials and reach out if someone you know is interested in learning connection tools and techniques for humans who parent. Cheers!